Hi, I'm Jamie,
Hi, I'm India.
and we are going to be looking at some of the questions that you ask us every February. There are usually some that we can reliably guess that people are going to come back to us with year after year, and occasionally some interesting ones that pop up that might be new. So we've got 5 today that we're going to talk you through and to hopefully give you some sensible answers so you can go away with an enriched knowledge of birds and nature and things that you might find around your garden and further afield. So the first question that we've got, India, is why am I seeing buzzards on the ground? So buzzards, quite big chunky birds of prey. You kind of expect to see them soaring majestically overhead, but we often will see them sort of sitting in fields, won't we? Why is that?
Yeah, so we do get quite a few questions about buzzards landing on the ground. They might land on grassland or arable farmland, and it's usually when the ground's been disturbed and they're after worms. So despite being, as you say, large birds of prey, they have a really varied diet and they will go for invertebrates and earthworms as well. And it actually helps them to survive in a variety of different habitats.
That's really interesting because you don't expect a bird of that size to be eating a worm. I mean, fair enough, you can accept that a blackbird is going to go for a worm, but you look at a buzzard and you think, surely it needs to be eating, I don't know, rabbits or something, but they must have to eat quite a lot of worms, mustn't they? But presumably there's other things as well. So if they're in a field where there's perhaps some, I don't know, horses, cattle, there'll be droppings, there'll be beetles as well, I guess. That'll be nice and crunchy for them.
Yeah, so they have a mix of different things, so invertebrates, beetles as well. And yes, they will go for a variety of different sizes of prey when the ground has been disturbed, when it's been quite wet and rainy. Those are the sorts of worms that they go for. But yeah, it's quite exciting to see them do that.
Now, another bird of prey that many of us will be familiar with now is the sparrowhawk, which often comes into gardens. And I don't know about your team, the Wildlife Inquiries team, but certainly for us with the Nature's Home magazine and the Notes on Nature email, we get so many people sending in photos of these birds because they stick around for a bit. They're quite big. They're often not too difficult to photograph. But what kind of questions do you get asked about sparrowhawks?
Yeah, so our team as well, we have more queries about sparrowhawks than any other bird of prey. They can often be confused with a variety of different birds of prey, so goshawks, peregrines, and even kestrels, but they tend to be the most commonly seen in gardens. Sparrowhawks are about the size of pigeons, and the males have greyish bluish backs, and then they also have orange chests, orange breast feathers, whereas the females, because sometimes we get questions about what's the difference between the male and the female sparrowhawk. So the female sparrowhawks have horizontal barring on their chest feathers, and they're more brownish overall, and they can even be up to 25% bigger than the males.
Goodness. Does that mean that they might catch larger prey? So they might actually go for larger birds?
Yes, that's right. So female sparrowhawks will even go for pigeons, which are almost their size. So yeah, they will go for the larger prey, the females.
And what do we say to people that are worried about sparrowhawks taking their, smaller birds from their garden? Is it something that we would say there are ways to prevent this? Or I suppose another attitude will be to say, well, you've basically created a perfect wildlife habitat there because you're attracting a top predator. But people do get very attached to their smaller garden birds, don't they? What do you say when people ask about that?
Yeah, it can be very concerning and very distressing to see small garden birds that you've attracted to your garden and being predated on. But it's actually a really good sign that you have a thriving population of wild birds in your area, and that the sparrowhawks, it's the natural world, unfortunately, and something that we have to bear in mind.
Exactly. I find, and I live in a new build house, and when we moved here, the gardens were all quite sort of blank canvases, and there's no vegetation. So you're very conscious when you put up a bird feeder that you are creating, you're creating somewhere where small birds can come in, and it's actually quite easy for the sparrowhawks to come in. So you do have to create a bit of a balance. So I've deliberately planted more dense hedges near to my bird feeder just to give those sparrows a chance. And also sparrows feel more comfortable when they know that they can dive under cover, don't they?
Yep, that's right. So that's exactly what we recommend, having your feeders in the middle of the garden so that the birds can see them when they fly over, but at the same time giving them that shelter and that cover to dive back into when they need it, with bushes close by.
Good advice. And I think to see a sparrowhawk is a treat, because they are absolutely stunning birds. The male, as you say, quite brightly coloured, and the female, they've got that amazing eye, haven't they? Is that quite a yellowy sort of eye that really stands out?
Yeah, it's really piercing, and to see one up close and personal is just incredible.
One final thing to say on sparrowhawks, because again, I find them fascinating birds, is they have a behaviour which I think is common in birds of prey, called mantling. So once they've caught their prey, they sort of spread their wings out, don't they, to stop other birds seeing what's going on, or to stop other birds stealing their food. And then they can remain on the ground for quite some time, can't they?
Yes, it's an amazing sight to see that. And often what they leave behind is lots of feathers, so you can tell if a sparrowhawk has been in the garden and predated on one of your garden birds or a pigeon, or because of the feathers that are left behind. That's a clear sign that there's been a sparrowhawk in the area.
Now, one other really interesting bird that we're talking in February now is not around yet, but that you can expect to see around your home, is the swift. In February, it's a really, really good time to start planning ahead, isn't it, to welcome these birds back into the UK from their long journey?
Yeah, definitely. It's so important because swifts are sadly in decline, and that's a lot to do with the loss of their nest sites. So giving them homes, providing homes for them, is a really, really good idea. We would recommend placing nest boxes high up on a wall, on a building, 5 meters above the ground in the eaves. And we would recommend having an unobstructed flight path so they can get to it easily. They like to nest together. They're very gregarious birds. So we recommend putting several nest boxes up all close together for them.
And there's some really good advice on our website, actually, both for how to build a swift nest box yourself, and we do also sell one on the RSPB online shop. Swifts are amazing, and I think we could probably between us talk about them for quite a long time, because they sleep on the wing, they eat, they drink on the wing, they mate on the wing. Their whole life is in the sky, and it's only when they arrive in the UK or wherever they fly to, perhaps somewhere else in Europe, to make their nest, that is the only point in their lives where they make contact with solid ground or solid nest, isn't it? Amazing birds.
Yeah, that's right. They're incredible species. And they only actually spend 3 months in the UK. They need warm weather for the flying insects that they feed on. So yeah, it's just really lovely to have them even for that short amount of time.
Now, when can we expect them back? Is it around May time?
Yeah, that's right. So end of April, May time is when you'll see the swifts return. Them and house martins and swallows tend to be from April onwards as well.
And as you say, swifts spend probably the shortest time here of any of our summer migrant birds. But of course, you don't just see them, you hear them. It's an extraordinary noise, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible to hear them, and we're always after swift sightings as well. So if you do see swifts in your local area, please do let us know.
And we've got a swift mapper, I think, so we can put a link in the description under this video where people can go and let us know when the swifts arrive. But as we say, it's a little bit early yet. My other favourite fact about swifts is that nowadays their home can be found in the eaves of houses, older buildings and buildings where we've deliberately accommodated them. But before we came along and built houses, they would have been where? Cliffs, caves, also really, really old trees, wouldn't they?
Yeah, so they make their homes in a variety of different habitats and areas, but old buildings and buildings where they can make their nests on are perfect for them now. So yeah, we really recommend putting up homes for them if you can.
Absolutely. That is something to do, something for your to-do list for this month. Now, we talked a little bit about Swifts and the fact that they won't be back for a while. House martins and swallows also not back for a while. But we will start to get some early summer migrants back, won't we, this month?
Yeah, well, you always get one or two swallows and house martins coming back even in February. They're after the warm weather, they're hoping for the warm weather, and they're also hoping for lack of competition with nest sites as well. But generally speaking, you don't really see them return until April time onwards. But wheatears and sand martins come back a bit earlier, and they tend to arrive from March time onwards.
And you do also get the odd warbler that might have overwintered, maybe in Europe, or even some in the UK now. I was just thinking earlier about a chiffchaff that I saw at our RSPB Titchwell Marsh Reserve one New Year's Day. So some small warblers do stick around now, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. We're seeing patterns change due to different weather conditions. So yeah, we have been seeing some staying over in the UK.
Brilliant. So lots to look forward to and look out for. So keep looking up and keep listening for these birds arriving. And one thing that I like to do myself is to have a little list of the summer birds that I know are going to come back and keep a record of their dates and sort of tick them off. And when they arrive, and I always look forward to the chiffchaffs coming back, and then the willow warbler, which follows soon after. Both have incredibly beautiful songs. Chiffchaff, very simple. Willow warbler, a little bit more complex, but lovely to hear. And these are all little signs of spring that bring us little moments of joy, aren't they, as each of these new birds comes back?
Yes, that's right. It's something to look forward to, definitely.
Now, final question is about the garden. If you're lucky enough to have a garden or even a window box or a balcony, what can you do in February to accommodate wildlife, to welcome nature close to where you are?
So there are a few great things that you can do to help wildlife in your area. As we're approaching the nesting season, it's really useful to put out nesting material for the birds. So natural fibres, plant material, things like grass and moss, and putting them in hanging baskets and on bushes, somewhere that's easily accessible for the birds to get to. We don't recommend putting out human hair just because of the risk of entanglement, and pet hair either. We don't recommend pet hair because of the risk of it being treated, which can be harmful to the birds.
Very, very wise advice there. Yes, of course, sort of think of shampoos and any kind of medication you might have used on yourself or your pets could be quite dangerous. But February can be a cold, wet, unpleasant month. So it's actually quite a good month to sit indoors and plan what you're going to do as well, isn't it? So you might sit and think, well, I could plant a little mini meadow, I could make a little pond. So lots of advice on our website again, isn't there, of ideas for the coming year?
Yeah, that's right. We also recommend putting a variety of food out for them. So seed and suet is great for winter feeding, and there's still probably not as much natural resources available to them right now. So it's really useful for them if you put that sort of food out. And even water in a shallow dish or in a bird bath is really good. It's important throughout the year, not just in the summer. And if you're worried that it's going to freeze over, then we recommend putting like a small ball to float on the water, and that just keeps the water moving and stops it freezing over.
Wow, some really good advice there. Thank you very much for that. And we will put a few little useful links in the description under this video so you can follow up on some of the things we've talked about. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and thank you, India.
Thank you, Jamie.